Hello viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jaffrey with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with Pakistan, which received a major blow on the very first day of the new year from one of its closest allies, the United States. President Donald Trump, through a social networking site, expressed his disappointment and resentment over Pakistan's continuous support to terror outfits. We have a report.
US President Donald Trump welcomed the new year by making some major announcements through a social networking site. He categorically denounced Pakistan's complicit role in the increasingly growing terror attacks in Afghanistan, where around 15,000 US troops are combating the resurgent Taliban and other terror outfits. He tweeted, "The United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the last 15 years, and they have given us nothing but lies and deceit, thinking of our leaders as fools. They give safe haven to the terrorists we hunt in Afghanistan with little help, no more." Next day, the US accused Pakistan of playing a double game on fighting terrorism and said it would hold back $255 million of aid.
The administration is withholding $255 million in assistance to Pakistan. There are clear reasons for this. Pakistan has played a double game for years. They work with us at times, and they also harbor the terrorists that attack our troops in Afghanistan. That game is not acceptable to this administration. We expect far more cooperation from Pakistan in the fight against terrorism. The President is willing to go to great lengths to stop all funding from Pakistan as they continue to harbor and support terrorism.
Later, US also froze $1.3 billion of security assistance and said it won't release the amount until Islamabad cracks down on militant organizations operating on its soil.
Today, we can confirm that we are suspending national security, we are suspending security assistance only to Pakistan at this time, until the Pakistani government takes decisive action against groups including the Afghan Taliban and the Haqqani network. We consider them to be destabilizing the region and also targeting U.S. personnel. The United States will suspend that kind of security assistance to Pakistan.
Relations with Washington have gotten tense over Pakistan's alleged support for Haqqani network militants who are allied with the Afghan Taliban. But Islamabad is angered by suggestions that it's not doing enough, saying its casualties at the hands of extremists since 2001 number in the tens and thousands. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said his country should end its dependence on aid from the United States. He called the tweet non-serious and regrettable and said heads of state should keep international norms and diplomatic rules of engagement in mind when addressing other states.
17 बरस से हम एक ऐसी जंग में उलझे हुए हैं जो बुनियादी तौर पर हमारी जंग नहीं थी। अमेरिकी सदर को यह मालूम होना चाहिए कि 2013 में इक़्तिदार में आते ही हमने यानी PML की हुकूमत ने दहशतगर्दी के खात्मे के लिए किस भरपूर अज़म का इजहार किया और हुकूमत की इसी पॉलिटिकल विल के नतीजे में ज़रब-ए-अज़्म का आगाज़ हुआ। आज अल्लाह के फजल व करम से दहशतगर्दी की कमर तोड़ दी गई है और जो बचे कुचे अनासर हैं वो भी जल्द कैफरे किरदार को पहुंच जाएंगे।
A cornered and exposed Islamabad, bowing down to the pressure from Washington, is planning to launch a crackdown against the terrorists. Pakistan has prohibited collection of donations by Hafiz Saeed-led Jamaat-ud-Dawa, Lashkar-e-Toiba, Falai-Insaniyat Foundation as well as several such organizations named in a list of banned outfits by the UN Security Council. The decision left these terrorists disguising themselves as saviors of humanity infuriated.
कसम अल्लाह की लाहौर में प्रेस क्लब में कसम खा के कहता हूं, ये पाबंदियां मुस्तरद हैं। फलाह इंसानियत चलेगी, चलाएंगे, चलते रहेंगे। अल्लाह की कसम जैकेट भी मैंने इसलिए पहन ली। इस्लामाबाद, तुम्हारा ये हुक्म मुस्तरद। इंशाअल्लाह हमारी जिंदगी, हमारी कमाई, हमारी रोजी रोटी, हमारा टका पैसा इंशाअल्लाह फलाह इंसानियत, फलाह इंसानियत, मुसलमानों को दीन की दावत, पाकिस्तान में इत्तेहाद की दावत, जीने का मकसद, मरने का रास्ता, अल्लाह की कसम दावत और फलाह इंसानियत है।
Pakistan, a duplicitous state, has for years betrayed the United States of America as it cashed in billions of dollars and assisted it nowhere. In fact, it has always harbored terrorists fighting with the US forces in Afghanistan. However, its nefarious designs now stand exposed, and realizing potential of Islamabad's diabolism and conspiracies, one of its closest and oldest allies seem to be breaking diplomatic ties unilaterally.
Will Pakistan seriously take action against terror outfits based on its soil? To speak more on this, we are now joined by Ajay Sahni, a New Delhi-based counter-terrorism expert. Mr. Sahni, how do you see these latest developments of events between the United States and Pakistan?
You see, these recent developments, the statement by Donald Trump and thereafter the reiteration by various officials of the administration are a culmination of something that has been developing over the years. In Washington, the sense that Pakistan has been betraying the Americans, has been manipulating the Americans, has been growing ever since 9/11, and there has been a tremendous amount of anger in Washington, but this has been constrained, that it has not been articulated clearly. Because there was a dominant sense in Washington that they needed Pakistan, and also that Pakistan as a nuclear state should not be destabilized. There was the danger or the nightmare scenario of a rogue nuclear state. So American responses actually have been enormously constrained by these considerations. If you go back to the record, the Americans were thinking of declaring Pakistan a terrorist state as far back as in 1993. But always these considerations have come into play, and the Pakistanis have evaded the consequences of their mischief for all these years.
Pakistan said it is now planning to launch a crackdown on the terror outfits running charity organizations. Do you believe that it is going to be sincere in achieving its objectives?
Pakistan has refined the art of being a minimal satisfier for over the decades. What they do is that when enormous pressure comes from outside, particularly from America, they go through the motions of taking action against various terrorist groups. So they will ban them, they will pretend to seize their accounts, but they will, all these actions are always done after sufficient warning has been given to these state-controlled terrorist formations, so that they can shift their monies or their resources into other accounts. They can change their identities. At one point of time, when the Lashkar-e-Taiba was banned, the entire structure and infrastructure, the personnel, the leadership, everyone just shifted over to the Jamaat-ud-Dawa. Similarly, they have invented and reinvented their identities again and again to evade the nominal action that the Pakistani state appears to be taking against the terrorist groups. And the moment the pressure from the from outside diminishes, they go back to square one. They go back to their open alliance between the state and the terrorist formations.
Thank you, Mr. Sahni, for your views. Moving on, working on the line of its Act East policy, India has developed a strong bilateral relationship with the ASEAN nations. Indian Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj is on a three-nation visit to Thailand, Indonesia and Singapore to further bolster the relationship in areas of defence, trade, communication and others. We have Mr. Subru Kamal Datta, an expert on foreign affairs, who has been closely following the developments of this crucial visit. Mr. Datta, give us a sense of how significant is the visit of Indian Foreign Minister to Southeast Asian countries?
I think this visit of the Foreign Minister of India to Southeast Asia and to ASEAN nation would be very, very significant, not only in relation to expediting the strategic ties between India and Southeast Asia, but also in expanding the economic ties, as well as in relation to expanding the trade relationship and between India and Southeast Asia, and also for looking opportunities in relation to foreign direct investment from Southeast Asia to India, and also the other way around, Indian investment in Southeast Asian countries. So with that kind of a background in mind, I think this visit would be very, very significant.
India is working on to develop a road link with ASEAN nations. How will it help in strengthening India-ASEAN relations, especially in trade and commerce?
This would actually enhance the road connectivity between India and Southeast Asian countries also. And at the same time, with this road connectivity, more and more trade and commerce would take place, and more people-to-people contact would also get expedited, and it would get enhanced. So with more and more people-to-people contact, that would mean more cultural association and more cultural contacts between Southeast Asia, East Asia and India. And at the same time, on the economic front, if there is more enhancement of trade and bilateral relationship via the roads, that would actually help in export-import between all the countries of Southeast Asia with that of India. And together with that, it would also actually enhance commercial activities and commerce between India and Southeast Asia.
Thank you, Mr. Datta. Moving on. Sindh is one of the 4 provinces of Pakistan where the indigenous Sindhi people are facing persecution for decades. Although Sindh is Pakistan's second largest economy, with Karachi being its capital, the people here are still poor and suffer because of economic exploitation and religious discrimination. My colleague Ravi Khandelwal spoke to Dr. Hidayat Bhutto, a Sindhi political activist.
The people of Sindh, they are fighting for their independence. They want a separation from Pakistan. Why?
Because historically Sindh has a separate country, and we feel that our stake is in a danger. Not only our society is in danger, but our whole ideas and our language. Sindhi language was a national language even in British rule, but nowadays it's not recognized, and they have closed Sindhi schools, and Sindhi medium schools has been closed, and they are doing, they have made Urdu language as their national language. So we are thinking that even more days if we stay in Pakistan, our stakes, our society is in danger. So we want to get rid of from that society and that fundamentalism. So that's why we are not happy in Pakistan. And not only that, they have exploited our resources, our demography is at stake nowadays. The recent census shows that in Pakistan we have no rights. We can't survive in Pakistan anymore.
As you know, the people of Sindh, they are resisting against Pakistani occupation. There's a rise in the human rights violations in Sindh province. So how serious is the issue of human rights in the province?
It has become very much a big issue has recently been because previously not only they are looting the resources and killing the people and arresting the people, nowadays they are disappearing people, and disappearance is the crime against humanity, and there is a huge surge of disappearances in recent months because they think that Sindhis are against the CPEC, and CPEC is just talking against the CPEC in Pakistan is just like doing a blasphemy. So we are sort of blasphemous for them that we are talking against CPEC. So that's why we are against these projects, and they think that Sindhi national forces are against it. So they are kidnapping them, arresting them, torturing them, throwing their mutilated bodies their target is not the victim, but their target is society. So they want to create a fear in the society that society should be suppressed and they can keep their occupation alive, and they want their occupation and make the China a partner in their occupation as well.
Now we move on to Nepal, which continues to be caught in a political deadlock over government formation. Communist Party of Nepal, unified Marxist Leninist CPN-UML, the party which won the maximum number of seats in recent elections, and the Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba-led Nepali Congress have failed to reach consensus, delaying the formation of the new government. A report.
People of Nepal who voted with much enthusiasm during the historic exercise of multi-phased election to choose their representatives are disappointed, as even after a significant period of time the results were announced, formation of the new government appears distant. Government formation has been held up by differences between CPN-UML and Nepali Congress over election of the upper house based on single transferable vote. The method would ensure presence of Nepali Congress and other smaller parties in the upper house. However, CPN-UML is opposed to it. Analysts believe that it is the greed and hunger for power which is not letting the things move swiftly and delaying government formation.
That is obvious because upper house is not yet formulated. Lower house has to be completed only after the upper house results. These two reasons have been given, but main thing behind it is the political ill motives of both parties.
Hopes of common people who voted to give the country a stable government seem to be shattering as politicos continue to tussle for power.
जुन प्रतिबद्धता राजनीतिक दलहरूले चुनाव अगाडि जनताबीच गरेका थिए त्यो प्रतिबद्धतालाई भोलि आजको दिनमा राजनीतिक दलहरू सत्ता स्वार्थको बाटोतिर लागेका छन्.
It's not just about choosing the members for the upper house. The government will have to appoint governors of all 7 provinces as well as fix the temporary headquarters of the provinces before the new government takes oath. Deuba wants to appoint governors before leaving office, while CPN-UML and Maoist leaders insist that their provincial cabinets will not take oath under Deuba's appointees. This has also become a roadblock in the formation of the government. So it can be said that it is the personal interests of the top leaders of Nepal which have held up government formation.
As per the Constitution of Nepal, promulgated in 2015, the government has to be formed by mid-January. However, with no end to the deadlock in sight, Nepal is likely to miss the constitutional deadline. Let's move to Sri Lanka, which hopes to raise a record $5 billion through bond issues this year as it seeks to repay its substantial debts. The cash-strapped island nation established modern financial center in Chinese-funded port city development with an aim to boost economy. Take a look.
Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe visited the controversial Chinese-funded port city development for the first time and announced the establishment of a financial center to service the South Asia region. Our Chinese consortium will invest $1 billion to build 3 60-story office towers as part of the new financial center. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe, who was given a tour of the site by Chinese and Sri Lankan officials, said about 75,000 people will live in the city and support a workforce of over 200,000 people.
ඒ නගරේ ප්‍රයෝජනය නම් මේ මුළු ඉන්දියන් සාගරයටම සුදුසු විශේෂයෙන්ම මූල්‍ය හා වාණිජ මධ්‍යස්ථානයක් ඇති කරගන්න. ඒ සඳහා දැනට වරාය නගරය කියන මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ වෙනම මූල්‍ය දිස්ත්‍රික්කයක් ඇති කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒත් එක්කම මේ ව්‍යාකෘතිය යටතේ 75000ක් පමණ ජනතාවකට ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් 2 ලක්ෂයකට අධික ජනතාවක් ජීවත් වෙන නගරයක් සකස් කරනවා. ඒ නගරය ඉතා අලංකාර, ඉතා නවීන නගරයක්.
The $1.4 billion development of Port City, a project of China Communication Construction Company, began in late 2016 as part of Beijing's ambitious plans to create a modern-day Silk Road across Asia. For the overall project, Sri Lanka anticipates an eventual $13 billion of investment in housing, marinas, health facilities, schools and other developments over the next 30 years.
මේකතයි බලන්නේ ලංකාවේ ආර්ථිකයට නව 50ක් දෙන කේන්ද්‍රයක් ව්‍යාකෘතියක් හැටියට. අපේ අයට මෙතන ඉඳගෙන විදේශ ආයෝජන ලබා ගන්න වෙනත් මුදල් ලබා ගන්න. ඒ නිසා මෙතන විශේෂයෙන්ම මූල්‍ය වැඩ කටයුතු වගේ නීති සේවා, වාණිජ්‍ය සේවා ඒ සියල්ලම ලබා දෙන්නේ.
Struggling to pay its debt, Sri Lanka recently handed over the strategic port of Hambantota to China on a 99-year lease, in a deal that government critics have said threatens the country's sovereignty. In recent years, China has showed up its presence in the Indian Ocean, investing billions of dollars to build port facilities and plan maritime trade routes as part of its One Belt, One Road initiative to help increase its market reach. Along the way, smaller countries like Sri Lanka have found themselves owing debts they cannot pay.
Sri Lanka owes more than $8 billion to state-controlled Chinese firms. Moving on to India, a land of vivid cultures and religions, we now take a look at the ongoing Magh Mela in Allahabad city of Uttar Pradesh. The 40-day fair is celebrated in the month of Magh of Hindu Calendar. We have a report.
Thousands of Hindu devotees and pilgrims braved near-freezing temperatures to wash away their sins in the icy waters of Triveni Sangam, the confluence of the three rivers considered holy by the Hindus, Ganga, Yamuna and the mythical Saraswati. Festivals like Magh Mela are a way for some to dedicate time to higher purpose of life and earn ascetic merit. For others, they are occasions to escape the rat race of life. The Magh month begins on Purnima or the full moon day.
आज पुष्य पूर्णिमा है, आज से माघ स्टार्ट हो रहा है और पूरा हम लोग एक महीना कल्पवास करेंगे, यहाँ स्नान ध्यान करेंगे और इससे पूरा एक महीना स्नान करने से बहुत पुण्य मिलते हैं और बहुत पुण्य अर्जित होते हैं.
Pilgrims converge at the banks of Sangam every year to bathe in the holy waters, pray and meditate on the banks.
कल्पवास का महत्व आज से प्रारंभ हो गया. आज पूर्णिमा है. सुबह स्नान करके स्नानार्थी कल्पवासी संकल्प लेंगे. एक महीने पर्यंत संगम में स्नान करके अपने यज्ञ को पूर्ण करेंगे. यह यज्ञ जीवन पर्यंत कई जन्मों को सुख देने वाला होता है.
Reportedly, around 150 million devotees are expected to throng Sangam during the festival this year. Teams of police, paramilitary forces and commandos have been deployed to ensure proper security. Makeshift tents have been erected at Sangam for those who wish to stay during the month. Arrangements have been made for food, sanitation, medical and electricity. Around 1,500 buses from different routes in the state have been assigned to bring devotees from around the country to the auspicious Mela. Devotees not only from the state of Uttar Pradesh but from across the country visit Sangam during this festival.
Hindus believe that bathing in Sangam cleanses them of sins, speeding the way to the attainment of nirvana or the afterlife. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.